Hey, today's video is a Q&A, a bookkeeper Q&A, so I'm going to be answering all of your questions. Definitely give me a thumbs up if you're excited about this Q&A. My name is Morgan. My website is FinePoints.biz. I have a free masterclass and a free checklist that a lot of people have found helpful. You can check that out if you're interested in starting a bookkeeping business. And without further ado, I'm going to jump into our first question. So this is from someone who was asking how to do a reimbursement because their client split an office space with someone and they were paying the full amount and then getting reimbursed for it. So basically she was really trying to, in my opinion, overcomplicate it. But how I personally would deal with this situation, let me know in the comments if you see any problems with this. I would just create an expense account called rent. And then when they paid, say they paid $1,000 for rent and her client paid it. So she, it would be an expense of $1,000. And then when the other half came in, when her business office mate paid the $500, I would put it in that same category called rent, the exact same expense category. And then you would have the minus $1,000 and the plus $500. And then that would equal out to be the correct amount that they paid, that they were trying to pay for rent, which is $500. All right, and then Janie asked, she's starting a bookkeeping business and wanting to know if she's worried about competition from other accountants and bookkeepers and tax professionals, and wanted to know if I had that problem. I personally haven't had that problem at all. I've actually found bookkeeper communities to be very helpful, and I actually think of accountants as one of the main ways that you can get new clients if you're looking for clients. Because if you build those relationships with either bookkeepers or accountants, oftentimes people are too busy and they have clients either that aren't in their niche or that doesn't work for their type of business, and they will, share clients with you. I've seen that happen many times. So I haven't really found that to be a problem with the competition. All right, and then I picked a few tax questions because it is tax time coming up. This person wanted to know that if they're paying their quarterly taxes, is it an expense or is it a owner's draw? And so most likely it's an owner's draw. It's an equity account. You want to make sure it's equity, and it depends on your business structure. So if you're a bigger business and you are a corporation or something, then it could be an expense. But most LLCs and S corps and sole proprietors, I believe, are what they call a pass-through, which means that any income you make is taxed. So it is kind of like your own personal money that you are paying to the IRS. Definitely check with a tax preparer, a tax accountant, someone like that about your particular situation, because I do not prepare taxes. I'm not an expert. I only know because I've been around for a little while. All right, and then Jacob asked about taxes. Do you need to pay on the dates or can you pay before they are due? And you can pay before, I'm pretty sure. I've never had a problem with that. And remember, the quarterlies are just estimates, so no one expects you to be perfect. I know it can seem really intimidating, but it's going to be all figured out exactly at the end of the year by your accountant. So basically whatever you pay to the IRS, they're going to be like, thank you. I've even thought about paying every month just from a cash flow perspective, just make it easier. But yeah, the dates aren't super strict. You could get penalties if you pay late, I think, but I don't think early is a problem. The only caveat I have is kind of keep it a little organized, because your accountant's going to want to know what you've paid so far this year. So if you've paid 6 times, they're going to want to know that. And if you go to the IRS website and you create a login, then you can see a record of your past payments. All right, and then Tiffany asked, can you pay your quarterly tax payments with your business bank account or your personal bank account? This is actually similar to the question 2 questions ago. Let me think here. I think you could pay with either, and I would record it as an equity, because it doesn't really matter if you are transferring from your business to your personal and then paying taxes, or if you just pay from the business, as long as you record it in your books appropriately. So whatever helps your own organizational system. Again, double check with your accountant if they have preferences. All right, and then John asked, what kind of computer do I use? I use an Asus VisioBook. I'm just looking at over there. I do have a printable that has all my tech recommendations, and I actually have a video about it. The thumbnail looks like this. I'm going to leave that printable linked for you in the description below. But basically you can use pretty much any computer starting out, and then I have a couple recommendations in that video if you want to get into more technical stuff. All right, and then someone asked, how did I choose my niche? I'm trying to get into the niche for attorneys, bookkeeping for attorneys, and that basically is because my husband's an attorney. So I kind of feel like I'm familiar with that industry. I've always understood what trust accounts are, what client cost advances are, just because my husband will kind of talk about it randomly. And I can ask him questions if I need to. If you're looking for a niche, that is a good tip, is think about the types of people you know, the types of people you're around. And, you know, do you know a lot of veterinarians? Do you know a lot of musicians? Do you know a lot of Etsy sellers? Because that can help you network and find more clients. All right, and this person asked, what do you do when the client, this one made me laugh, loses all of their receipts? Not just some of them, but all of them. He's asking if in that case you should include it, or you should exclude it from the books and categorize it as an owner's expense. I would say if the business owner is honest and they're just disorganized, then I would just categorize the transactions based on the vendor. So if they went to McDonald's, it's probably a meal. If they went to, Office Depot, it's probably office supplies. And then you will probably want to help your client get into a better system of managing receipts. I have a 2-part video on that. The thumbnail looks like this. And I do recommend using the QuickBooks receipt capture. You can just do it on an app, or if they just want to throw all their receipts in a shoebox and save them for 7 years in case they get audited, that's fine with me too. I personally don't save receipts, and I try not to deal with receipts. But if you kind of think that your client is purposely hiding stuff and they are onerous expenses, that might be a judgment call that you can make. I would have a conversation with the client, and then, if it's a bunch of golf things or something, or travel that doesn't seem business related, you could put it as a owner's expense and then see what they say, or put it in a category in QuickBooks and then ask them. But overall, you don't need receipts every single time to categorize transaction. And if it's not something that's part of your job duties as a bookkeeper, if it's not in your contract, then I wouldn't overly stress about how they're dealing with their receipts. All right, and then Joyce asked if my bookkeeping class provides a sample contract. Yes, it does. So if you sign up for my paid class, which is called Bookkeeper Business Coach, it helps you start your bookkeeping business in 30 days. It does have a sample contract in there. I also have a video all about contracts right here, what to include. And in that, I don't actually give you a free contract, but I think I give you a couple resources on ideas about where to find stuff. All right, and then this person asked, they said that they're finishing up Bookkeeper Launch, which is my favorite bookkeeper program. It's linked in the description box if you want more info. And they asked, this is a good question, are checks pretty much the only thing that you input into QuickBooks and everything else comes through bank feeds? So I would say this depends on the client and your workflow. So yes, I probably describe it like that because that's generally my workflow. Is I do not invoice that much for clients. I have in the past, but currently I'm not doing a lot of invoicing. So the main thing I am putting into QuickBooks are those checks, because I want to make sure those are accurately in QuickBooks so I can see what is cash and what's not and what checks are outstanding. And then yes, all the expenses come through the bank feeds. There are other workflows you could do. You could input transactions from receipts and create an expense and then match that to the bank account. I do not like that workflow and I don't recommend it, but that's an option. And if you're doing invoicing, that would be the other thing that could be input ahead of time, or bills. If you were paying bills, you could, create all those things in QuickBooks and then match them when they are actually realized in real time. So you definitely want to work with your client, figure out what kind of your preferences are and what their preferences are. It might depend on how big the business is and how much, how many moving parts they have. But for the size of my clients and my preferences, often I'm putting in checks and other things are coming through the bank feeds. And their invoicing is done in-house. So in the office, someone else is in charge of collecting that money from clients, and I just record it as income when it comes through the bank. All right, and I thought this was an interesting question from 5 Pavilion. So they were just asking basically about billing. Do I bill, because sometimes for clients you need to do research, and am I billing that? Or is it just literally the working hours when I'm working on their books? So I feel like this could be probably a video in itself maybe, but first of all, I do fixed rate pricing, so I'm not charging by the hour anymore. That being said, when I did charge by the hour, okay, so when I started out, I charged a lower hourly rate because I wasn't as experienced. And, it probably took me longer to do things. And then as you get more experience, you can charge more because in theory, you're not taking as long to figure things out. I guess my answer is just that I try to be as honest as possible. If I'm spending an hour, 2 hours researching a new concept that I haven't come across before, I'm not going to bill the client for that because I consider that part of my own education, and then I'm going to use it, to gain that experience and to help out the next client and to help that client out again. So if it is kind of like an excessive research thing, a new concept that I am doing, I'm not going to charge them. But to your point, sometimes, especially when you're new, it takes you longer to do things. And I think that's okay. And I think you should be charging accordingly. And remember that you want to make sure that you're charged fairly for your time. You're not just putting in all these free hours for clients. So I don't know if I totally answered that question, but hopefully that's helpful. It's kind of a judgment call on your part. All right, I have time for one more question. Definitely leave your comments and questions in the comment section below, and I can answer those in another Q&A that's upcoming. All right, so Vegas Jax asked, in this video about which bookkeeper training to do first, I said when I was starting out, I felt very frugal and very cheap. And in hindsight, it would have been nice to invest in some programs. And so they were wondering what I meant by that and like what I wish I would have invested in. And basically, I was just trying to spend the very, very, very least money I possibly could when I was starting out. And part of that is because I wasn't sure if I wanted to be a bookkeeper long term. I kind of just saw it as like a temporary thing, earn a little extra money, and then I was going to go back to my full-time job after my kids were a little older. So I spent so much time just like watching YouTube videos about every question and, researching and going down rabbit holes and trying to find, sometimes it's hard to phrase the question correctly so that you'll find the answer you're looking for. You need to figure out how to phrase it. And so it just took a lot of my time, your time is valuable. So in hindsight, hindsight's 2020, but had I known that I was going to be doing bookkeeping for years and years and years, I probably would have invested in a program, something like Bookkeeper Launch, where they help you out, where they like hold your hand through the process of setting up your business and they teach you how to do it. There's little tests and certifications, and they also have that helpline that really like you can ask questions to. I think that's very, very valuable, especially starting out. And they have a community group too. Like it's not a Facebook group anymore, but it's a group that you can go in and ask all your questions. Because I just oftentimes felt very alone and like I needed that help, but I wasn't willing to spend the money. So that's my 2 cents for what it's worth. Thank you guys so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe, thumbs up, and hit the notification bell to get a notification from me every single week. I do a new video about bookkeeping, running, and starting your business. Thank you so much. Take care. Bye.